Hey everybody, I'm Trevor-New. If you are also new to the channel, please enjoy this video and like and subscribe if this is helpful to you. It helps me bring more content to people and just kind of lets me know that this is helpful. So hit those buttons below, and if you have any questions about stuff, shoot me a message in the comments, or I have like other social media too, Vox Viola on Instagram. You can hit me up there, and so let's get into it, talking about OBS and how to create kind of a magical experience for anybody who is watching you online in whatever medium that is. So, before I kind of jump in a little bit to, talking about OBS and what we're going to be, addressing in this video, technically, I just want to mention that, I'm making these to kind of help people find different ways of connecting maybe more effectively. I feel, one of our jobs, at least, is musicians or artists, if you do something creative, or if you teach as well. I do too, and I think especially at times like right now, it can be just really helpful to bring all of your experiences to your students, to the audience that you're playing for, or to the people that you're working with. And I think what I'll be talking about in this video will help you with that, and then also will kind of help you maybe speak in a different medium. As musicians, we focus on sound, of course, so much, and maybe we go as far as dressing up for things, but you can kind of look at being online as putting on another outfit, I guess. It's kind of how I like to think of it. All right, great. So the first thing you need to do is go over here and download OBS, which is going to be right here, Open Broadcaster Software. And, go ahead and select Mac. I use a Mac. If you use a Windows computer, go ahead and select Windows. Linux, same thing. And it'll go through and install the program. So I'll just click on that. Boom, it's going through. All right, once that's there, I usually just go show in Finder and double click and just follow the installation instructions. All right, so I'm back out here again on a little hike. Gonna be talking about OBS today, and hopefully finding my way. All right, had a hard time downloading the map. So now what you want to do is navigate to OBS. You can go in through your applications, or if you do command type OBS in on a Mac, it should open it right up for you. So I have some things already set up. This is kind of like a little bit of like a look that I did with my webcam when I was using that. I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna start a new scene selection, and we're gonna call this YouTube New. Let's just do that way. All right, so when you open OBS, you're gonna have a completely blank screen. You're not gonna have anything on anything at all. All right, so the way this works is we want to add some sources, which is going to be this area right here. So just take a look at these sections. So we have scenes, sources, audio mixer, scene transition, and then your controls. So the simplest thing to do to get everything up and running very quickly is go to sources. You want to hit the plus sign, and then you want to go to video capture device, which is, and you want to hit OK here, which is going to be anything that you have available to use for video. And in this case, I think most people are going to have a webcam available on their computer. And there we go. So that's me right there. And you can resize this just by pulling down this way, and it'll lock into the edges. So at this point, you have a webcam set up in OBS. If you come down here, you can see that you can turn this off and on with the eyeball. There's a lock. There's the lock switch there, which keeps you from, accidentally moving it if you're moving around some other things. And if you want to get kind of fancy here, you can add another scene. So this will just say scene 2. And when you go to add a new scene, there's nothing there, right? So you can either if you right click and hit copy, you can do the same thing down here. Do right click again and hit paste, and it'll add the same webcam, right? So why would you want to do that? Well, maybe you want to have 2 scenes where one is a little bit smaller and the other one's a little bit bigger, right? Now, if we take this as like a separate scene, the other thing that we can do now is we can actually add photos. So I'm going to find a photo here that I wouldn't mind adding. Let me see. How about I use one of my logos? So if I just drag and drop this here, there's my logo. And I can make this giant, and there it is. Now it's covering me up a little bit. So what I want to do is actually drag this up that way. And now this is actually behind me. So it can be like kind of a backdrop or something like that if you want. Yeah, and this allows you to lock that, unlock this, and maybe I want to be here, or I want to be here, something like that. Then I can kind of switch back and forth between these screens if that's how I want to do things. There are a number of options. Let's go ahead and add another scene, and let's do OK. And we go to the plus sign again. The other thing that we can do is, let's see here. We can actually create kind of like a presentation style type thing here. So this is again using the webcam. So I'm moving pretty quickly here. You can make kind of like a presentation style. So if you say I want to present my other monitor, or you want to present some sort of application, you can either do display capture, which is going to present, there we go, that's presenting my other monitor. And I'm going to resize this so that it fits. And let's make, so this is, let me see, the aspect ratio on my other computer is a little different. And again, I have to drag this up in order for me to be able to see myself. So now I can be like, oh, blah, 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 Ableton and all these other different things, right? Which is pretty cool. The other thing I can do here is if I don't want to share the whole monitor, I can go to add and then window capture. And I think this is where it gets really interesting. When you do this way, you can actually select any window that you have open in your computer, basically. So it's showing a lot of different things here, right? Let's see. Yeah, so right now we have live, which is Ableton Live, but that's what the computer sees it as, is open here. And now I'm sharing just Ableton. And let's resize this just a little bit. Yeah, it takes a minute just to figure out how you want to do the resizing. So it looks like this is a little bit more of a square than what we, there we go, than what we normally have here. So, and let's scoot Yeah, there we go. We scoop video capture up just a little bit, and there we go. Yeah, and that's pretty much the deal here. Just adjust this camera. So if you wanted to talk about like an application or something like that and you were streaming, this would be a really easy way of doing that. Then you could go back to scene 2 and be like, hey, I'm really cool, that's my logo, check it out. And then you could maybe be like, hey, so I have this thing that's really important, blah 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 blah, right? These are really good teaching tools, really good presentation tools, and I would say performance tools as well. You can also add video to this, and it's just a little bit more challenging. Let me show you just another feature with the scenes as we go into that. If you right click on a scene, you can actually duplicate the scene so you don't have to go back and redo everything. So I'm just going to call this scene 4. There we go. So again, right clicking is really helpful. Actually I would say try right clicking on any of the different things in, yeah, there we go. Try right clicking on any of the different things inside OBS, especially when it's within scenes and sources. And you'll find that there are a lot of different things that you can do as far as there's a lot of different options to explore, especially when you start getting into the sources in terms of sizing, scaling, and all of that kind of a thing. So I'm going to go back to scene 4 because this is going to be, I'm going to rename this scene 4. This is going to be our video demo area. So let me get rid of the, what is it? Display captures off, window capture. You want to get rid of that. You can also relabel these, by the way. So if I was being smart about this, I might call this Ableton View, right? And we can make this a little larger if we want. There we go. So yeah, might call that Ableton View, right? Yeah, resizing this thing actually would be really helpful for me to see. So we have Ableton View, that's on, that's off, right? Now, if we want to add video, you can actually just drag any files in. Any video will work, but this specific file type is the best. It's called WebM. And when you drag this file type in, you have to drag actually 2 files. So you have to get the WebM file and the XMP file that's attached to it. So I believe that allows it to encode a little bit differently. Like if you look at files, there's what's called a header at the top before all the code starts. They separate that in this one. So, and there we go. So we have some video now. I'm going to right click on this and go to properties. Now let's see. Good. So that's the file path there. That's good. And then if I go back and I go to filters, I can change some effects if I want. So something that I would like to do is to actually have this loop. So if you notice, it's a little inconspicuous, but there's like a little thing down here that allows you to move up and down. So I can change the speed here, and I can also click loop. So I want to go a little slower, and now it's a little slower and it's looping, and it will go continuously, which is pretty cool. Let's lock that, and let's actually resize this. This could be kind of a cool backdrop if you have if you're doing like a performance style thing. Now, if you really want it to cut through, what you could do is go to video capture device, you right click, and then we go to filters, and now there's all these different filters and effects that are here. So if I hit the plus sign again, let's say I want to go to color correction. I can go to opacity, which is whether or not you can see through. Opacity is like, if you can see through something or not. And if I turn this down and then I go close, you see how it actually comes through now. The background comes through. Just maybe it's kind of a cool effect. I like the like this background. It's kind of cool. And then we can just go back and it's back to normal. Yeah, so keep in mind there's a ton of things that you can do with this. Explore all these different features that you have. There are many more things here that we can kind of go over. But yeah, so that's basic setup right here. Just getting the video going, then adding a picture, sort of background type thing if you want to be in there like that, and then capturing a window like on your computer. And then here is a video. This is a looped video, but you can use a very long video if you'd like. MP4 files work. They are a lot less efficient than these WebM files. If you're doing a larger sort of streaming setup, you'll want to use the WebM files, and that will be something you'll have to export from Adobe Premiere or Final Cut. I believe those are the two that I know that you can do that with, but I'm sure there are other ways of turning a video into a WebM file. All right, so this next part, if you're not interested in using OBS as a streaming software, you can skip ahead to the next section. I'm going to be talking about audio routing, which is going to be specific to streaming. So let's the first thing you want to do is go over to settings here. So we click that and we go down to audio. So you have a monitoring device here, and I'm using my audio interface for that. This is essentially going to be your speaker output. You can think of it that way, kind of like in Zoom. So this is what's going to be heard in terms of like this is what you're going to be hearing from OBS. This allows you to monitor any of the audio that's going through the program. Now up here, this is where you're going to look at, say like using a microphone or something like that. Right now I have all of that disabled because I'm not using any of it currently. But what I could do is I could add the audio from Ableton, for example. I have a thing there for that. And then I could also add the audio from my computer, which is something that I currently don't have enabled. So those are two options. It's pretty straightforward. It's something that you kind of have to mess around with, and it really depends on what the audio settings are in your audio interface or in your computer. But if I come back here and let's say I add the audio from Ableton, which is that right there. So once I do that, it pops up right here in the audio mixer, and that is added for every single scene. All right, and if I want to turn that off, I can click here, I can click it back on. If I want to be able to hear the sound that is going into OBS, I can go to the advanced audio properties and I can switch this to monitor and output or monitor only. And if you do monitor only, just be careful because that makes it so the sound does not go out to everybody else, but you hear it. So if you want to hear it and send it to everybody else, monitor and output, you'll click that there. I'm just going to do monitor off for now because I can hear all the things that I need. Now there's something kind of interesting and cool and can be a little bit of a pain if you don't pay attention to this. If you notice how in the fourth scene here I added this video, it created an audio track for the video as well. And this video doesn't have any sound, but if it did, it would actually be playing out through here, and I'd be able to control the volume here or switch it off or that kind of a thing. When you add a microphone to OBS, it goes to each of the different scenes. But if you didn't want that, for example, say you wanted a separate mic for this scene, I could go add an audio input capture, and then hit OK. And now I can select a separate audio source. So what's great about this is if you have, let's say I want to do my MacBook microphone just for this particular scene because maybe I'm doing something a little bit different. Now when I go to other scenes, that's not available. So what's great about this is if you have, say, like sort of a scene structure for like a play or for some sort of online performance, you can make it so that only during certain scenes the right people get the things that they need in terms of being able to be heard, or like the right track comes through, or the right audio source comes through. It really depends on what you're doing. So that's incredibly useful. Yeah, so keep in mind, audio with this is pretty complicated. If you'd like to figure out, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about audio, just to understand certain things a little bit better, check out my audio routing video. Be able to find that on the channel here, and I'll put a link in the description. It's good to understand just basic principles around audio and routing on your computer before doing a ton of streaming. But you can use what we've done here and do just fine. So another really great use of OBS is as a basic virtual camera. What allow you to do is to do different sort of presentation style talks and performances where you can use all the functionality that you have when you're streaming, but while you're on a Zoom call, Skype call, or Google Meets. So if we go over to your search bar here, if you type in OBS Virtual Cam, it's pretty hard to find, and specifically the Mac version that I use. So if you go into the description below, I'll have the Mac version and the Windows version with links attached. So here's the Mac version, and what you're going to do is you're going to scroll down and click on OBS Mac Virtual Cam, essentially install that, and then just follow the instructions that are attached here. The installation process is a lot easier than it was before. Once you finish that, let me close this. Once you finish that, you can go to OBS and then go up to Tools and then hit Start Virtual Camera. Now what that's going to do is that's going to start a feed that's going to be running into Zoom. So join with computer audio. Good, which is actually running now. So this is I have my mirroring set. I'm going to turn that off. So this is the stream coming in from OBS. So now if I bring this over here, if I'm in Zoom now, I can switch between scenes just like I did in OBS, but now they're showing up in Zoom if I'm on a conference with somebody. So let me just show you that one more time. If I'm in OBS here, you can see if I click on the scene here, it changes in Zoom, and you have access to all these different features. All right. Now, what's really cool about this is that it gives you access to video, controlling video, in a way that's a little bit unique while kind of superimposing yourself in the shot, which is pretty cool. Now, the reason you might want to do this is not just because, you can, right? Because you can do screen sharing in Zoom. It's not a terribly difficult thing to do within Zoom already. But the difference is when you actually have yourself in the shot with the material that you're talking about, you're creating a vibe. Like it's a nice thing for people who are trying to learn how to do something. It kind of takes a little bit of the technology out of the experience and brings a little bit more of you into it. So I wouldn't actually use this if you don't think that would make a difference for you. There's also a slight issue with if you're using very small text. It's a little bit, because of the sizing, it's a little bit more difficult to read within virtual cam if you have to read small text. Like, again, it's usually not really an issue at all, unless unless some very, very tiny details are what need to be seen by your audience, which is not very usual, or not normal. So use this as a way of connecting more with your audience or your students in like kind of an artistic way, because it is really cool to be able to cycle through things and also to be able to do it quickly. That is the other thing about Zoom, is going to screen share back and forth is very slow. Just even the extra clicks and that kind of a thing, it changes the experience, and your the people who are on the call with you will have a nicer experience, and they'll appreciate the effort that you put in. All right, now the big thing now is how to stream. If you go into Google Chrome, right, and let's say you want to stream to YouTube, and I'm just gonna go up here and I'm gonna click go live, which may or may not be a good idea. Let's see what happens. All right, great. Nothing too crazy. So if you hit go live in YouTube, you're gonna go to stream, and there's this whole thing about how to create a stream. I'm gonna say no here just because it'll speed things up. Now, connect streaming software, go live user. Yeah, there we go. So what I've done is I've gotten to the streaming options in YouTube, and there is a stream key here. So I'm going to make this viewable. Stream keys have lots of crazy numbers and dashes and all sorts of things. So what you would do if you wanted to stream to YouTube through OBS is you take this stream key, you can just hit copy. Ignore this stuff for right now, and stream latency, I would actually, usually it's good to put like normal latency, but low latency will allow you to speak to people with much less delay. So yeah, I have pretty good internet, so maybe I'll just leave it at low latency. So if we come back to OBS over here, when you want to do your stream key, you go to settings, stream, and then you would select YouTube right here, and then you put your stream key in right here. Hit OK. I'm gonna hit cancel because I really don't want to change these settings. Sorry, I have a bunch of stuff set up, but that's where you put that in. You hit OK, and then you just hit start streaming, and then it goes. And if you want, you can actually look here to see if it connects properly. All right, you can do the same. It's basically the same thing in Facebook. What is that? Twitch has a similar deal with that as well. Stream keys are basically the standard for streaming. That's why they're there. So it doesn't get more complicated after that. Fortunately, you connect OBS with the stream key, and then you can start. And the other thing is OBS isn't going to start and then do something unusual or crazy. It will only start working if it actually is connecting to something. Then at that point, you're online and you're good to go. All right. So lastly, if you want to get into some more complicated or higher quality, higher resolution things, again, we're going to go to settings, and we can go to, I believe it's output. Yep. And then you can see that we have for your settings for streaming. You can also record, by the way. It's like there's a bunch of features. You can record your video, and then you can talk there. This is your audio multi-track recording, and then replay buffer. That you don't want to get into that, but that's basically is what it sounds like. and that's some of the stuff is a little hard on your computer if you choose it. But what you can do if you want to have a higher quality stream, like with better color, you can bump up the bit rate. I would never go above, what is that, 6500, because like actually Twitch, I believe, throttles your resolution if you go above 6500. 4000 is actually kind of high depending on what your internet connection is. It comes at 3000, shows up at 3000 when automatically. These settings here, fast is just fine. I can do very fast. My CPU and GPU are pretty great, so these settings I usually just go pretty high. I'm actually going to bump up the bit rate probably even, but yeah, you can go through these settings and kind of figure out what you would like. I have mine set up at HD, which works for me, but you may want to stream at a slightly lower quality here. So I'm going to go through, I have to turn off virtual cam in order to access these settings. So this is, 1920 by 1080 is HD. If we go 1280 by 720, that's not HD, that's 720, but that's also, I believe that's what Facebook accepts, or scales everything to. So that's a totally acceptable output resolution. Your base canvas is how large of a space you're actually working with in OBS, like the screen that we're looking at here. And then your how many frames per second. This is always an interesting thing to figure out. If your camera doesn't go higher than 30 frames per second, then there's no need for you to go higher than 30 frames per second. 60 is interesting. It's a certain kind of look. I prefer 24. It's kind of I guess you could say it's kind of like a sort of the cinematic look. That's what you get in movies, for the most part. And I think it looks pretty cool. And it also kind of cuts down on your what you need in terms of, your internet connection, and improves your reliability. So those are some extra things if you got through all of that stuff and you needed a little bit more to do. If you have any questions, throw something in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned some new things, and enjoyed this hike that I went on.